First of all, I would like to start by giving a quick intro to our company. Simbiosis is a marketplace that connects tech companies in the US, mainly startups, with software agencies across Latin America that have available talent. The idea is that if you're looking for a software engineer, you could use our platform to source from vetted agencies so they can assign full-time remote developers to your project. We'll be sharing more information in the chat, so you can follow us on social media and reach out to us if you require to grow your tech team. So today we're very excited because we have a very special guest speaker, Jade. In this case, I would like to only start by saying that she's an expert on everything regarding marketing for early stage companies, in this case for the startups as well, for mid-sized companies that are growing and they're required to invest in marketing. So I would like to get to know you better, Jade. Could you share more about your background?
Yeah, definitely. So I own HexaHive. We do what we call is kind of all things marketing. And so what does that mean? We help with everything from problem solving to marketing, design, and really just trying to advocate and be like your business's best friend that you can lean on. And so that includes helping businesses, really helping small businesses do marketing that have big goals. And so we help with social media, strategy, website development, and branding. And so when it comes to my background, I started going to school for graphic design, and that was kind of where all of this stemmed from. While I was in school for that, I was super competitive and I really wanted to get ahead of my classmates. And so while I had like a full-time internship and everything, I started doing freelance on the side. And as I was doing freelance and everything, I found that I really, really enjoyed working with clients directly and that kind of thing, and not just like doing things that were on the to-do list, but helping figure out what's most impactful for their business. And so it's kind of where like the seeds for HexaHive were planted. So I did freelance for a while as I went to school for graphic design and then marketing and a variety of other stuff to just really build and get really well-rounded and get experience in a breadth of things so that I could really help advocate for businesses and understand all facets of them. And so that was kind of where HexaHive was born. And then from there, we expanded and now have a team of 6 and contractors and everything there. And so that's kind of what we've grown into.
That's great. That's great, Jade. And that actually leads me to our first question on this. Given that you come from a background that you will be like an independent contractor doing like freelancer efforts, at what point did you realize that this was a potential business? Like, how did you transition from a personal business to a company that is actually hiring people and growing really, really fast?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it definitely happened a lot more organically for me than for other people. And so while I was doing freelance, I initially started contracting with agencies to just get like more experience and stuff. And then over time, I started working directly and contracting directly with clients within North Dakota, where I'm from. And that was kind of when I started to realize like I really like working with clients directly and not like with the agency as much, because you get to advocate a lot more, you get to understand the business deeper and everything. Excuse me. And so then from there, I started to look at like, okay, is this something that I want to do full time, or how do I want to transition? Because I also had a full-time role basically doing the same thing in-house for a Fortune 500 company here. Okay. And so I was doing that and I started to think that through, and eventually I kind of needed to decide, do I want it to grow into management in my current role doing marketing and design, or do I want to do my own thing? And I had a lot of like work and stuff that I was turning down. And so I just ultimately decided to like bite the bullet and do that. And I had my employer at the time was like, if you change your mind, we'll take you back. And so it made it really easy. Okay. And then they also contracted me after, so that instead of going from like 40 hours a week with it, I think where it lost was at deciding kind of how to transition from having contractors to going into having full-time people. And that was something that I started with contractors, just with contracting out like what I wasn't necessarily enjoying as much, or that I could find people that could do it better than me. And then from there, I had a team of about 25 contractors, and I really just wanted to start working with people like as more of a team, and contractors just kind of like do what you say and check it off the list. And I wanted team members that could advocate for clients just as much as I do. And so that's when I started to look at like hiring full time, and
Mhm.
ultimately started transitioning those contractors into full-time roles and cutting that down. And so now we only have like a handful of contractors and instead have our basis more full-time employees.
That's pretty impressive. And yeah, I mean, like what one thing that we have seen a lot that is happening with early stage companies that are just getting started is that they struggle a lot to generate the first traction, right? Like getting things running and getting their first clients, and then having like these referral programs where they start reaching out to more customers at the same time. So I would like to know, now that you build this company and now that you transition from being a freelancer to a business owner, in this case from with a marketing agency, how did you begin to generate more traction besides your network in that manner?
Yeah, so my networking was actually kind of the like key aspect to that. I knew that I wanted to focus primarily in our market first because there's a lot of businesses that were untapped. And so there was a large opportunity there. And so I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to join different like boards and networking groups and that kind of thing that are going to add the most value. And so I picked ones that have like my ideal clients in them, and then started with that. Because while that's not like traditional marketing in the sense of Facebook ads and everything, that still counts in getting brand awareness and everything there.
Mhm.
And so from there, that kind of got some of our first clients, and then really focused on just serving them well. And from everything, it has been fully word of mouth until we just finally started doing some marketing internally about a month and a half ago. And
Okay.
so through that, it was all word of mouth and really leaning into that local aspect. That being said, for businesses that aren't trying to be as local based and are wanting to be serving customers that are more online and finding them there, that would be where avenues, like if you're doing business to business kind of marketing, then like LinkedIn is really great for reaching people there,
Mhm.
or doing Facebook and more like traditional advertising would kind of help with that initial startup of building like your plate of clients.
Yeah, and I mean, like you have an advantage because you're an expert on these topics. You know how to reach out to people. You know how to build your
Mhm.
own campaigns. But for the rest of us that we have no idea on how to start running our first efforts on this, what would you recommend? I know that the word of mouth is something that works because you get like a client that is very happy, share about your business with other people, and that's super helpful. But what would be like the best way or the best effort that you would recommend to people that don't have any idea on how to run
Mhm.
a campaign, how to start working that, or how to define a budget on that manner?
Yeah, definitely. So I think a key part to start is with like defining your business goals. A lot of the time people think that marketing is just like this separate thing that you do, but really the biggest thing that I see a lot of small companies do is that they don't know specifically what like the goal of all of it is, besides like we want more money or like we want more customers, but it should mean a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
There should be specific kind of like metrics, and you should know more about who that customer is. And so I would start there before I choose like, let's do Facebook or let's beef up our website or do a podcast or this. I'd start with like, okay, who is that end person that I'm trying to reach, and where do they go, and what do our competitors do, and start looking there, because each business is different. So what works for like your friend that owns a different business, if they're trying to reach different people, that same strategy isn't going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times people kind of go too much off of like, well, I saw an article that says I have to do this, so here I am like posting like 3 times a week for this. But if it's not like the content that's reaching the right people, then it's not going to do anything. And so for the second part of your question, when it comes to budgets, that is also one where I'm like, I hate to say it, kind of depends. A good like rule of thumb is that like 4 to 8% of your gross revenue. And
Okay.
so from there, that can be a rule of thumb. You can also look specifically. So if you're serving, like for us, it's easy because we can look in North Dakota and kind of see what the average is, what our competitors, and really leaning into like who are our competitors and how much are they putting into it. What about like complementary services? So for us, that
Mm-hmm.
would be like video production, because we don't do that. But so seeing like how much are they putting into their marketing, because they're also serving the same type of people, and kind of looking across there to help establish your budget. And if you're trying to grow more, then that would be putting a little bit more into that. But ultimately, like if you're also busy, that's something that we see a lot of people where they're like,
Yeah.
well, I'm busy, so I don't need to do marketing. But it's like, are you busy with the people that like make you the most money or that you enjoy working with the most? And we've had several clients that we've worked with that they go from being busy with like people that are kind of a pain to work with to
Yeah.
being busy with their target audience by shifting their marketing to be focusing on what those people are caring about.
Right. And sometimes if you're busy, it doesn't mean like you're being you're meeting your full potential, right? Like if you think that, okay, I already have a lot of work. Yeah, but you can grow and you can hire more people, and then you can get more job if you lead your campaigns to different audience, and then you're able to grow faster. Now that you
Yeah.
mentioned your competition on that, how do you evaluate them? I know that you mentioned that there's this like a benchmark that you're constantly doing, right, about your competitors, but how do you realize what are they doing, and how can you learn more about that process in order to apply it to your own business?
Yeah. So I would say that every year you should look at your competitors and kind of define who they are, and then also like what they're doing. And so with that, typically what we'll do, whether it's for us or for other businesses, is we'll figure out who they are and then identify like of this competitor, who are they like trying to work with? Who are their ideal clients? How do they compare to ours? Because then that kind of helps set a basis there. And then look at like their website, their social media, kind of creeping online at all the different facets and seeing like of what they're doing, how much would our like ideal client kind of connect with them, and how can we stand out from that. And so for HexaHive, something that looks like is a lot of our competitors focus only on like a couple industries or on one type of service. And so we've been able to market ourselves as like the one-stop shop. So you don't have to work with like 8 different companies for your marketing, because we understand you so well and we can apply that to all parts. And so we were able to like really lean into that because we know that that's something that none of our competitors here have to offer. And along with that, we promote a lot about how like we don't work with competitors that are within the same industry and trying to reach the same people, because you can't get 2 people in the #1 spot on Google. And when we say that to people, they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And if they were going to go with someone that like niched in that industry, then a lot of the times they go with us because they're like, yeah, I don't want someone doing my marketing that does the same thing for everyone. And so really like the point of describing that is look at like what your competitors are doing and what like they think makes them stand out, and see how you can pivot and differentiate from that and what makes you different, and then promoting from there.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense on that strategy. And is there any success case that you would like to share with us in a way that you can replicate something like that with any other company, that you can follow like a pattern, right? Like they follow a certain steps and that lead them to success.
Yeah, so I guess one that kind of first comes to mind is um a company here that were larger at the time and have since grown a lot more. But at the time, they had about like 40 employees, and they weren't really doing anything for marketing besides just like oh shoot, we should put in this ad or do this. And so it was very like on a whim and without a reason. And like social media, they would drop on and off depending on like if someone was busy or not, or how motivated they were. And there was really no plan of all of it. The reason their company was able to grow was mostly because they had a really good product, and that kind of held them along. And so when we started working together, we really started coming up with a plan of like, okay, I know you guys are busy, but like, who are the people you really want to be working with? And when we defined that, then we built like a marketing strategy around that and started building out between social media marketing and their website. And now we're rebranding them because they've grown so much more. And from there, they've over doubled in size and are now spreading out into multiple offices and everything else. And they've been able to grow a lot more because we've been able to have a reason for everything that we're doing. And beyond that, we made sure to continuously align it with where their business was at, so that when they wanted to start expanding into this region, we looked at the marketing strategy and how that makes sense, or how for them it was like one region was kind of a different subset of products. And so it's like, we need to market this one different because you're trying to reach, instead of like high-end luxury people, you are trying to reach more middle class. And so how can we pivot that without hurting your brand? And so I think really what comes from that is just trying to continuously pivot and look at where businesses are at, instead of setting something in stone and never visiting it again.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, it makes a lot of sense to be doing that, and it's something that we can all replicate, right? As an early stage companies, we can all start doing that. And one thing that comes to mind, because we have talked with a lot of startups from the Capital Factory community, for example, and one thing that comes to mind is that, should I be doing my marketing efforts internally, or should we start by hiring an expert, or at what time should we evolve and hire a marketing agency instead of doing it in-house? So what would be your opinion on that? Do you recommend people to grow their internal marketing teams, or to start going with experts since day one?
I think some of that depends on like the long-term sustainability. Having someone in-house means that that's a very long-term commitment. Because you shouldn't, if you slow down, you obviously like don't want to have to let someone go or that kind of thing, because you don't have enough work. And the other thing with that is that you want to have a strategy in place. And so one thing with the company that I was just talking about like previously, so they started without having anyone internal, and then we did everything for them, and then they just hired someone 2 months ago to be their full-time marketing person, and then we are kind of consulting and helping out with like the overall direction of things, but that person can execute. And so we really focused on getting a good foundation in place. But ultimately, if you're trying to decide whether to hire internally or hire an agency or a freelancer or that kind of thing, when you hire internally, one thing that I often reference is like, it's kind of like asking one person to build a house for you. And so is the person that's doing the blueprints also going to be pouring the concrete? And are they also going to be framing and finishing and doing everything there? And you might be able to find one person that can do that, but that's going to be really, really rare to find someone that's actually good at all of it and that understands how to put all the pieces together. And so when you're hiring someone internally, if you know you have like social media and a couple things that are related, that can sustain them, I think that's great. And if they can be committed and be in there. But a lot of the times people don't have the wide set of skills like that, where it's like you don't have that one person building the house. And people a lot of times lump marketing and everything together, but typically that person's going to need help, whether it's with the strategy aspect or with like ad campaigns or different parts there. So if you're able to sustain that person in-house for different parts, I think that's great. But a lot of the times we've seen people have needed to like supplement it.
Yeah, I understand that. And I remember that when we started with software development, we were offering services, and that's something that comes like very frequently, right? Like, it is, sometimes it makes more sense to start working with an agency that knows how to build everything from scratch, and then you hire people for specific reasons, right? Like, okay, I need, because now you know what you need, right? Like, this is a very convenient starting point. So we would like to learn more about HexaHive. I mean, like, what kind of process do you follow once you start interacting with a company? How do you recommend us what steps do you recommend us to follow? And what will be like the initial process for working with a company like yours?
Yeah, definitely. So the process typically starts with a free consultation. And so with that, we sit down and try and get a high level of like your business goals and what you think that you need. Because typically people think like, I need campaigns or I need a website or branding or whatever. But figuring out what they think they need, what their goals are, and what their budget is to see how we can come together and kind of get the best plan in place for where they're at. And so from there, we'll learn a little bit about them and everything, and then put together a proposal that's like, okay, based off of your goals, I think we should kind of like slowly lean into this, or let's really hammer down on this so that you can get an ROI right away. And then we'll work on this bigger thing that you want. because marketing should not be this big cost. It should be an investment and you should be seeing a return on it. And so that's really where we focus on helping people find, especially in small businesses, the best method forward so that you can be getting those returns and keep getting those quick wins as you grow into something bigger. And so from there, once we do that kind of initial proposal, then if they're ready to move forward, then we kind of just go in based off that plan and start working together.
Okay. That's great. I would like to take this time to encourage all the attendees to leave your questions on the chat. We will have a small Q&A in a couple of minutes. If you want to also turn your speakers on and talk about that, that would be great. But one thing that we want to ask you, Jade, also on this part is what will be like the main factors that you consider that will increase the potential of a success for these first-time companies? Jade, do you hear me?
Oh, could you repeat that? I think you cut out for a moment.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, of course. So what would you say that will be the main factors for a successful company that is just starting? Like, what will be your main recommendations for the first steps that you should take on this part, and then the follow up on that process?
Yeah. So first steps would be really defining your business goals, having like a strong business plan in place, because marketing should be supporting all of that. And so if you don't know your business goals, it's really, really hard to have successful marketing because you don't have anything to be supporting. After that, I would make sure to define who you're trying to reach. And so that comes down to like looking at competitors, looking at from everything with where you're at, who are those people, and not just like, oh, they're businesses, but okay, what size business, where are they located, what do they value? And really starting to look at some of those different traits so that you can better define how to reach someone. Because it feels really intangible to be like, okay, I'm reaching businesses, but then like how? And so when you start looking at like the key stakeholder is this role versus this, then it's like, okay, what social media platforms is that key stakeholder on? Because then you can really focus on how to try and connect with them and do that. And that's also where you can look at like what your competitors are doing, especially if they're doing a really good job in growing, then it's like they're probably reaching people in some of the right ways. And so then you can look at that and see like, how can I pivot off of this and how can I stand out more from there? And so a lot of marketing, like people, I feel like think you need to start with this big crazy thing, but it's like really understanding who you are and what makes you different. And then from there, it should come more organically for how you're reaching people because you have that strong foundation.
Okay, that's great. And for the last question, what are the next plans for HexaHive and where can people contact you?
Yeah, definitely. So we've been growing a lot. And so right now my plans are to kind of figure out the best and most efficient ways to do things. We've had a lot of different new team members come in. And so it's like, how can we find even like more efficient ways to get the same great end result? Or how can we get an even better end result? So that's kind of like what our current like internal focus is right now. And then expanding on the clients that we really like to work with and finding more of those. Because I had mentioned that we kind of just started doing marketing ourselves. So now we're looking to kind of build out into a lot more of those like meaningful relationships and building into that and kind of going from there. People can contact us on our website, hexahive.co. So hexa like hexagon and hive, or I'm sure you guys could leave my info in the chat and everything there. So
awesome. Yeah, we have the information on the chat, and I'm gonna read some questions from the audience. First one comes from Andres. Have you ever worked with a client that had an in-house marketing team? If so, how did it go? Were there any challenges regarding communication and organization between the two teams?
yeah, so it's actually my preference is to work with someone that has in-house for marketing because they're able to be there and speak the day-to-day things. So probably half of our clients have an in-house marketing person, whether that's like a role that they do part-time or they do like a couple things, or that's like their one thing. And the other half don't have that. And what we found is like, if someone does have that in-house marketing person, they're able to hear the day-to-day and they have a little bit of that mindset. So they're able to help us prioritize a lot more of the needs and everything. And we can work together in there. So kind of regardless of if they have that or not, we are really confident with our workflow because of how our communication and everything works. And we focus so much on understanding the business goals that whether we're working with like the marketing coordinator or marketing team, or just the CEO or someone completely different, we're able to kind of connect back and prioritize them because we know what the marketing's supporting.
Okay, okay. Yeah, no, that's perfect. I mean, like it makes sense that it will be way helpful, right? To have someone internal that knows the drill and know how to communicate with your team. There's a follow-up questions from Andres as well, but I believe that we covered that. Would you advise a company to build their own in-house marketing team, or should they first start with an agency? And I believe that we cover part of that during the conversation. There's another question from Andrea. Are there any marketing trends coming for the next years?
Yeah, definitely. So marketing, I think, is starting to, especially after COVID and everything there, where people were locked down and didn't have a lot of interaction face to face with people. It's really becoming a lot more people focused. And so what that means is that people shouldn't be interacting with a business. They should be feeling like they're talking to someone, and they should be feeling like they matter. And so a lot of the trends that like we see upcoming are going more value add. And so going away from any cold calling, any cold marketing, and switching to more value add content. And so that can be like doing really valuable blogs, doing webinars or things like this that answer people's questions and that kind of thing. And going away from like the business model of like, I'm so great, work with me, to like, here's some tips, let me help you. And then they see the value and want to work with you. And so that would be like a really high level overarching one.
Okay, okay, okay. That's great. We have another question from Erica. Hello, what strategy would you use to generate more trust from users so that they choose you as their best option?
Yeah, so I guess if users aren't trusting you or like aren't as much as you want right now, I would probably start with a survey too, to start and see why that is. Is it because you feel impersonal? Is that because something happened that broke their trust? Is it something there? And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to ask their customers questions, but that's a great time to fix a damaged relationship or to strengthen one to make it even better. So I would start there, and then beyond that, going back to that, like, let's add value to them in different ways. Let's see how we can help them, and acting genuinely in all of that. And over time, that should help build that consistency so that they do have more trust for you.
Okay, okay, okay. We have another question. Should I start focusing on paid advertising or first use PR strategies? What are your recommendations on that?
Yeah. So PR is really, really great for building that initial build up and everything, and even pairing that with some paid ads, depending on your situation. So like if you have a website but don't have a lot of traction or that kind of thing, I would, if you have connections, to do some type of PR ads, whether that's being featured on different webinars, talk shows, and kind of building those different links. That'll help with SEO, and also so that when people are searching for you, you look a lot more reputable and everything, and building that baseline and sharing that on social, sharing that in those different ways can help so that you seem more credible. If your goal is overall brand awareness, then paid advertising can be really great for that, for targeting those different people. So it kind of comes down to like what the overall goal is. If it's to make you seem more reputable, PR is really, really great for that, and can help, depending on what tactic of PR you're doing, can help with that awareness, but overall just with showing that you're reputable. Whereas paid ads can kind of switch in a lot of different ways, but are really great for building that overall awareness.
Okay, okay, that's great. And which is more effective in your experience to get more leads?
I would probably go with paid advertising to start and see. That one, so like for us, we recently started doing more PR stuff, and that's brought in a ton of different stuff just because of kind of how we've positioned ourselves and everything. But if you're looking on less of like a local basis and you're not doing local networking and that kind of stuff and don't have some of those connections, then that might not be enough to like push someone to like become a lead right away. If it's one or the other, I would probably, like, not knowing the situation fully, start with paid advertising and then try and complement that with PR, so that like if someone's seeing your brand name and who you are a bunch, and then they see that you're featured in this, then it's like, oh, they must really know their stuff, or like they must be good at that. And so then that can be the selling point for people that are on the edge. And I think with that, I would probably just challenge a little bit, like it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do a combination of things and have a lot of success.
Okay, okay. That's great. Anna, do you have a question, right?
Oh yeah. I was going to ask if you, Jade, have like get inspiration from a certain company, whether it's a big size corporation or a small company that you feel like it's excellent at doing marketing.
Yeah, so I feel like it's easy to pick some of the like big ones like Apple, Target, Nike. You can look at all of those. But for what really applies to where you're at, I would look at like top, like for Symbiosis, like top software staffing companies or different things there to find and kind of look across and see from your industry who kind of mimics, because it comes down to like Target's really reaching different people than like you guys are, and across the board. And so defining someone who has that same target audience or someone within that can really help, so that like it's easier to relate that to your business.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is always great to have like an idea of what type of I would say like a model that you would like to follow, right? Like just to get like a better ideas in how to improve that communication with your clients.
Yeah. A lot of the times people try and like reinvent the wheel by doing something like totally different that no one's ever done. And while that's like great to explore, if you're first starting out, I would definitely, you'll save a lot of time and money if you look at someone that does it really well and look at how you can apply that to your business and how you can pivot off of that. And that's a lot easier than trying to like come up with this whole new business model, whole new angle and everything. Whereas if you can build off of like what's already there and make it your own, that's great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. That's something that happens with all founders, right? Like we want to reinvent the wheel and we want to do something that is completely original. But sometimes what you need to do is to replicate some efforts and add your value, right? Your extra value to that as a differentiator. We have one question from Andrea. What do you think about different apps such as TikTok, Instagram as a channel to reach the market?
Yeah. That like all of those are really great. I would go back to who you're trying to reach and thinking of that. And so for example, like if you're business to business, in a lot of situations like TikTok probably isn't going to be worth your like investment initially. And so that's really different for big companies that are well established and everything. But thinking about like where are you going to be reaching those like business leaders, where are you going to be connecting with them? And that's where I'd probably look at like LinkedIn more, or doing Facebook. You can target off of a lot of demographics, so looking there. And so kind of going back to like who is that like ideal kind of person and prioritizing what's worth your time for where you're at. But all of the different platforms have a ton of different value and all are trying to reach different people. So I think that's where it comes back to like, even there's a lot of blogs and stuff online that can help explain like what platforms are best for reaching what people. And that can be a great spot to start and look and see like, okay, this is like good for this, and this is who I'm trying to reach. So I should start here and going there.
Okay. That's great. And we have one last question that is said, what is the minimum revenue level of companies that you work with?
Yeah, so we don't really technically base it off of revenue. We are happy to scale with businesses like big and small, so it's more based off of their goals and where that's at. So we charge based off of like services done, time spent, that kind of thing. And so our clients typically, like on a monthly basis for what they're paying, can range like right now between like $800 a month to 20 grand a month. And
Okay.
so they kind of fall within that realm. A lot of them are going to be investing like several $1,000s in marketing and starting there just for our time, and especially for building a marketing strategy. But it's all kind of based off of what you need and that aspect. We do also offer marketing consulting, where that's just on like an hourly role. So if you have general questions that you want an expert on, we can do that just based for our time. And that's a
Okay.
great option for if someone's like, should I do this or should I hire for this? Should I do this or this? And if you want someone to look at your marketing plan, we can do that.
I mean, it sounds like a great idea on how to start, right? Like maybe just get like a consultancy and then define a plan and see if it makes sense to work together. So yeah, okay, awesome. So for everyone that is interested in reaching out to Jade, we have shared her information, her email, and also their HexaHive website, so you can reach out there. We really enjoyed this conversation, Jade. I mean, like it is impressive all the knowledge that you're sharing with us regarding marketing. Given that we are not an expert on that, we can learn a lot from an expert like you. And we will share this video, this presentation with all of you, all the attendees via email. And yeah, I mean, like in case that you guys have any other further questions to Jade, I'm positive that she will be very open to answer them. So we very much appreciate your time today, guys, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.